Hello, welcome back to RetroBreak and welcome to my review of this amazing little console here called the RG351P by Anbernic. This little device here can play all sorts of different retro consoles, all the way from NES and SNES, all the way up to PlayStation 1, N64 and even Dreamcast. And if that sounds too good to be true, well, at first I kind of thought it was, but after a lot of tweaking, I finally got it to work properly. So in this video, what I'm going to do is do a quick unboxing and then show you what to expect out of the box, and then I'll go into some detail about how to improve this console by changing the operating system and getting the emulators to run a lot better. So there's loads to look forward to, but first, a word from my channel sponsor. This week, Bifrost Bridge Studios sent me over their new Metroid comic, but this is no ordinary comic. It's actually partially written by AI, which I think is really fascinating. So if you want to know more about this and to get notified when it's released, go and follow them over on Twitter. I'll put a link in the description. And now with that said, let's get started and let's take a look at what the RG351P can do. So here's how the system looks straight out of the box. It's got this nice protector over the front to keep the screen nice and clean while it's being shipped over. It's got a volume slider on one side, two rubber grips on the back, which is really good for when you're putting it down on the table. On the other side there's a power button, there's a micro SD card slot at the bottom. At the top you'll see there's two different USB-C ports, one of which uses the included charger, which I actually took out of the box before making this unboxing, and the other USB-C port can use this Wi-Fi adapter here to allow you to download games and updates over the internet. The analog sticks on this system are exactly the same as the ones that you can find on the Switch Lite, so hopefully they won't start drifting in the future. They seem okay for now. And for a quick size comparison, here it is next to the Switch Lite, so you can see it's really nice and portable. It's just a little bit bigger than the original Game Boy Advance, but the screen is quite a bit bigger. So here's what you'll see when you first turn on the system is a selection of all of the different consoles that the system can play. It comes pre-installed with a list of games, but for some reason they're not in any particular order, and the numbers that they have next to them don't really correlate to anything in particular. They also have these strange icons here that seem like weird photoshopped versions of the game box art, or sometimes not even related to the game itself. Like this is the NES Dr. Mario, but it has a screenshot from Dr. Mario World for iOS. And then Super Mario number 7 has a picture from New Super Mario Bros. 2 for the DS. So it's a little bit strange to say the least. And now I'll boot up one of the games so you can see how long it takes to load, and you can also see why I was kind of disappointed by this when I first started playing. But don't worry, it does get better, but I just wanted to give you a glimpse of what to expect fresh out of the box. So as you can see and hear, something wasn't right. So it turns out that you can hold in both the analog sticks to load up the menu for RetroArch, and from there you can tweak loads of different settings within the emulator. So I found one called Threaded Video and switched that on, and that seemed to fix the NES games, as you can see. But it wasn't just NES that I had problems with. The next system I booted up was the Game Boy, and as you can see here, right from the moment I started the game, something looked a bit strange. It had this weird checkerboard grid pattern over it, and no matter what settings I tried to change, it was always there. It turns out that to fix this you had to go into the actual game options rather than the emulator and turn off video shaders. So it's quite frustrating that none of this was actually set up on the system beforehand, which is especially frustrating considering the fact that they advertise this as a pick up and play device. It really isn't. When I was first planning this video I actually wrote down all of the systems that are on this device, and next to it I was going to write down whether they worked or not without any tweaks, but unfortunately every single system that I tried had something wrong with it. Just take a look at this little bit of a video that I was going to do as sort of a tutorial, and you'll see just the amount of frustration that I was having with this initial setup. And one way I've found to fix this is if you go into the menu and go to video, if you turn on... threaded video is already on, so for this one I suppose you'll have to have a look at some other settings and see what works. Try turning filters off, see whether that helps. No. For every single system that I played there was something wrong. Every single time for every different system I had to go into the settings and keep tweaking things until they worked properly. So I won't bore you with all the details, but as you can tell I was getting very frustrated with this and it was not a great experience out of the box whatsoever. After several hours of trial and error, resetting the console and experimenting with all kinds of settings, I finally got them all working reliably. But by this time though, my excitement for the system had gone down considerably. There was one system though that worked really well right off the bat, and that was Game Boy Advance. Not only did these games play great, they also look great as well, thanks to the fact that this screen is exactly double the resolution of the original GBA. So the first time I booted it up and played some of the games, I'm sure you can imagine that I was really disappointed by this. It really didn't live up to any of my expectations for the system. Pretty much everything I played seemed to either run slow or not run properly at all. So I did a little bit of digging online and came across a website called Retrogamecorps, and they have loads of really in-depth tutorials, videos and written tutorials on how to get the best out of this system. So I'm not going to show you exactly what you need to do in this video, but I will link down below in the description some of the tutorials that I used in order to improve this system. So you've seen what the system's like when it's fresh out of the box. Now let's take a look at what you can do with it after following some of those instructions. So following some instructions, I downloaded a brand new fresh operating system called ArkOS. And once again, this was not a simple process. It included downloading a lot of additional software on the PC to be able to format the SD card and partition it in a certain way, and then you had to make sure that all the correct BIOS files for the systems were in the correct locations and all the folders were set up in the right way with the right naming conventions. But finally, after all that effort, I finally got the new operating system installed, and I have to say, I am completely blown away by the difference that it made. If you're thinking about getting one of these systems for yourself, the first thing you should do is throw away the SD card that comes pre-installed, go onto the website, I'll put a link in the description, download ArkOS, copy over all of your ROMs. I actually copied all the ROMs that I had on my EverDrives onto this, so I had a great library of games to play right off the bat. And I also mentioned earlier about the Wi-Fi dongle. You can actually use this using ArkOS to download the latest versions of all of the emulators within RetroArch, and you can also use it to update the OS itself. So after I'd finally got everything set up properly, I began to delve into some of the more interesting things that the system could do. There's one really interesting thing in particular called ports, which are games that are programmed specifically to make use of the Anbernic handhelds. So built into the operating system itself, you've got games like Cave Story, Wolfenstein, loads of classic games which are fully playable versions, and it's amazing to see them running on this. You can even get things like Doom, Quake and Half-Life running on it. But the thing that was most exciting for me, and that's one that's not pre-installed, is the fact that this can actually play the port of Super Mario 64 in 60 frames a second and widescreen, and playing it on this device is just mind-blowing. It's so smooth and it controls so well. Another thing that I was super excited to try out on this is Pico 8, one of my favourite systems. I'm going to do an entire Pico 8 video in the future, so I really hope you're looking forward to this, and the RG351P is definitely my favourite way of playing Pico 8 games now. I'll cover all that in a future video. Another thing that this OS did was dramatically improve the performance of things like the Dreamcast and the Nintendo 64. It's so cool to be able to play things like Sonic Adventure 2 and Metropolis Street Racer in the palm of my hands, two of my favourite games of all time. As well as this, it can also play Naomi and Atomic Wave arcade games, so being able to play things like Super Monkey Ball as well, I was just blown away, and it runs almost perfectly. There's actually a really good website out there that's got compatibility lists, so you can actually have a look at all of the different Sega consoles and see which games will run well and which ones won't, so I'll put a link in the description to that as well. So there's loads to cover with this system, as I'm sure you can imagine. Let me know down in the comments below if there's anything you'd like me to go into more detail about, but I have to say that Retrogamecorps probably has you covered. I'll put a link to their channel in the description as well. They've gone into so much detail with this system, it's incredible. So I'm sure you'll agree that is a million times better, and now I am super happy with the console. I'm actually a little bit overwhelmed by all of the possibilities that this little device here has. I can't believe I can play things like the Dreamcast or the Naomi on this system. So I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want to get one for yourself, I'll put a link in the description down below so you can check out the website and pick one up. Please subscribe, please check out Patreon if you want to support me and see some behind the scenes videos. That will do it for now though, so thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next week for the next episode. Goodbye!